Welcome to Regionally Speaking, a forum that explores the distinctive aspects of Northeast Ohio's Western Reserve. And now, introducing your host, Professor of American Studies and the Director of the Western Reserve Studies Symposium at Case Western Reserve University, Gladys Haddad.
Hello, and thank you for listening to Regionally Speaking. Cities across the country are facing the worst recession since the Great Depression. How do you redevelop a city in these challenging economic times? In this series on the Social Justice Alliance Institute at Case Western Reserve University, we'll be joined by community experts and leaders, faculty and students as we discuss these important issues for Northeastern Ohio and its central city of Cleveland. As part of the East Cleveland Debut Collaborative Project, we are on location in the Creative Arts Complex, home of the SnickerFritz Art Gallery and Art Studio. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our speakers today, and they are Rhonda Williams, faculty member in the History Department at Case Western Reserve University and Director of the Social Justice Alliance Institute. Edward Parker, owner of the EEP, which I now know stands for Edward Everett Parker, Creative Arts Complex, home of SnickerFritz Art Gallery and Art Studio, and the SnickerFritz Cultural Workshop for the Arts, Incorporated. Nancy Nolan Jones, Project Director of SnickerFritz Community Time Capsule Project. Ed Parker, if I may, as the founder of this Creative Arts Complex, please explain how you arrived at the name SnickerFritz that you gave to many of its components and the philosophy at work in their creation.
Great question. How did I come up with the name SnickerFritz?
Yes.
I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
And from my understanding, that's a Pennsylvania Dutch-German word. And my grandfather, when he first saw me, he said, "Oh, isn't he a little SnickerFritz?" So I grew up with that as a nickname. And trying to immortalize him, I started calling my business SnickerFritz.
I see. Well, now we know. But is there another meaning to the word SnickerFritz?
Yeah, the meaning, Pennsylvania, that's German, the meaning means mischievous or cutesy.
And are you living up to that?
Mischievous, yes.
You're living up to that characterization?
Absolutely, a little of both.
Well, I'd like to have you talk about this area and all of the many components of it. I mean, how did you go about making the decision to do it, and then all of the various parts of it that have come together here?
Yeah, as a young artist, I used to belong to a group called NCA, National Conference of Artists, and there was a Samela Lewis who was a speaker, and I was in the audience. And I had difficulty in showing. I would go around, and I know that I had this talent. I had difficulty in showing my work. So I decided, she made a statement way back in the day saying that if you want to be successful, you have to build a platform for yourself. So I said, I'm going to take my time and build a platform for myself. So my first gallery studio was on 125th Street in the Buckeye area. Mm-hmm. And then when I saw this, I said, I'm going to develop this. And as an artist and a visionary, I was coming around Emily, which is a street adjacent to this building. And the first thing I thought was Emily meant to me, early money is like yeast. Emily, early money is like yeast. So if I would buy this facility, and put money in it, it could do nothing but perpetuate itself. And then I was astounded because the address was 13240. And in my mind, that meant if you added that up, that added up to 10. And 1 is the beginning, 3240, and 0 was the end. There was a 10 there. If you add the numbers up, it meant 10. So if you're a numerologist, 1 and 0 is lucky numbers. So I said I could do nothing but win.
That's quite remarkable. I'm glad I asked the question. Do you have some more you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think so, because I was thinking about buying this building and ran into an older gentleman and didn't know him. He was on a bus corner street somewhere, and I met him, and we started talking. I said, I'm thinking about buying that building. And I'm somewhat intimidated because, we're sitting in 19,000 square feet, you know what I mean? It was kind of overwhelming. I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know anything about the city, what the citians wanted out of me, etc.
Now, when you say the city, are you referring to East Cleveland?
Yeah, because
right.
you have a point of sales inspection. I've become abreast of all these things since I've been here and started developing other property. So I asked this gentleman, I said, I'm thinking about buying this building, but I'm scared, I'm intimidated. And his answer was to me, he said, how old are you, son? I said, I'm 42. He said, you're young enough, if you fail, you can start all over again. And so that was the incentive of me coming on in here.
And how long ago was this that you made the decision to
About
come
27
here?
years ago.
27 years?
Yeah, this building was empty 17 years.
Uh-huh.
And I've been working on it about 29 years.
All right.
There's a big art piece. I looked at this as a sculpture.
Well, it certainly contains a lot of artwork, but in and of itself, it has become yet a larger sculpture.
Yeah.
I mean, if you put all the things together, that's what the impression is one gets. This is all art.
And that's what we tried to do from the ceiling to the floor. And I've touched every inch of it in my development. And as I started working, I just prayed that I wouldn't die here, you know what I mean? Because I knew my friends would say, that building killed him. But I'm here and well.
Yes, you
alive.
Are. And may you remain so.
That's right.
Rhonda, excuse me, I want to go to Nancy next and ask you to talk a little bit about the background that led to the creation of the SnickerFritz Community Time Capsule, for which you serve as the project director. Can you do that? Can you talk about that?
Sure. I joined the SnickerFritz family last fall, about late September, and was thrilled to be here. Had been here many times before as a visitor to different functions here. And when I joined here, the family in an employed way, I wanted to just see how I could best assist, bring what talents I could to help embellish what was already here. And I had observed the time capsule being opened in another community of Cleveland, and I thought that was a really unique idea to bring to SnickerFritz to try to bring the community together on a joint collaborative project, and asked the board, and they sanctioned the idea. There was a lot going on at the time because we were in transition to have a new mayor come into East Cleveland, who is now Gary Norton. Mm-hmm. And he's going to bring a lot of good things we know, and just real good energy comes with him. And there's been a lot of change in East Cleveland, and I see a lot of change on the horizon, and a lot can happen in a decade. And so we set out to develop the community time capsule that will be reopened again in 2020 to just kind of document some of the current the current status of the community. And as we've worked through the process, people want us to really talk about the past history and maybe a little bit about the future. So the project is a time capsule, and it has somewhat evolved to also being a project that would tell the story of East Cleveland past, present, and future.
How did they find you?
I came through a senior program training program, and they placed me here at SnickerFritz, and I was delighted at the at the thought of it, and didn't want to let them know how much of a wonderful match I felt that would bring.
But it wasn't that easy because they had sent other people, so there was an interview process. She's being modest, and she won out over the interview. Because I think I interviewed 3 or 4 people before she came. But once she saw her face and knew the connection and the skills that she brought, it was an open and shut case.
I can understand it. When I first heard her talking about what she did here, afterwards I went up to her and I said, I wish I had that job. It sounds fascinating to me, but you are very good at it, I know.
Thank you.
I want to turn to Rhonda now as director of the Social Justice Alliance Institute. Will you describe the appeal of SnickerFritz in meeting the goals of the East Cleveland debut collaborative project?
Sure. Thanks for having me here, Gladys. It's wonderful to be back on the show with you and with Nancy and with Ed here at SnickerFritz. I think what's important here, and you've heard it in terms of how Ed talked about SnickerFritz and how Nancy has described the Time Capsule project. And so you have the combination of arts and oral histories and the preservation of history, the examination of change over time, as well as what does this mean for the future. And one of the things that we do through the Social Justice Alliance and Institute, what our mission is actually to work towards equal access to opportunity for all people through understanding and addressing the root causes of social injustice, and also trying to figure out and develop innovative solutions to that. And one of the things that we're doing is establishing our debut collaborative project with East Cleveland as one of the major partners. And in that, we want to really bring together diverse stakeholders, have conversations, understand what the history is, understand and identify community priorities, and do that through actually oral narratives and oral testimony. So when Nancy actually approached me to tell me about the Time Capsule project, I said, wow, this sounds great. It sounds like a moment where we're going to have a great dovetailing of concerns, of interests, of excitement, and a way to really bring together a thought process, an intellectual process with an arts process, with a community process in a way that could be reciprocal for all of those involved. And so this project, the Time Capsule project, will allow us to really get our feet wet and build networks and build trust and build community with members of East Cleveland and learn through that process as we attempt to really flesh out and bring people together around this debut collaborative.
Well, now, with all of this that has been presented so far, we're going to take a break, because when we return, we're going to have a discussion among all of you. It's already set up. We'll be back in a minute.
Regionally Speaking is made possible through the generous support of the Social Justice Alliance Institute, the Case Western Reserve University Advanced Opportunity Grants, and the Case Western Reserve University Center for Community Partnerships. To learn more about the issues facing our region, visit our website at blog.case.edu/WRSS.
Well, this is going to be a discussion I'm looking forward to very, very much. I'd like to open it, Ed, and I'm going to start with you, because how did you make the choice for East Cleveland?
Excellent question. The vision. I was located at 8 on 125th Street off of Buckeye.
Yes.
And I started outgrowing that, as I was saying. And as I was coming around, I didn't know anything about East Cleveland. I didn't know their background or anything. I just saw this building coming around Emily, as I stated earlier. Mm-hmm. And when I was going to buy the building, I had a minimum amount of money. And I was at a party one time that the head of a bank was there, and he was impressed with what I was doing, and he said, you go back there and tell them to give you some money for this building. And this is a positive. It might sound negative, but this is a very positive thing. So when I went to the bank, they told me, he said, Professor Parker, we will give you money to go anywhere, and this is 27 years ago, we'll give you the money to go anywhere except East Cleveland. And if you came up in the neighborhood that I came up in, that was a challenge, you know what I mean?
Yes.
I went to Cozy, and they said the same thing. You know how they do those, same thing, all negative. And if you came from the neighborhood that I came from, those were fighting words to make me be like what oftentimes referred to as Nancy, a bulldog drumming, you know? Get in here, stick my teeth into it, and develop it. So that's what I did. How are you going to tell somebody how, you know, that not to come in a certain place? And I didn't know all the particulars. As I mentioned earlier, when you buy a property, there's a point of sale inspection, and they give you a list of what they want you to complete by a certain time. I know about that now. I didn't know anything about that then. So I would just pray. Just give me the strength to come over here and pick up or do something every day. And that's what it led me to do. I came over here to pick up a nail. In 7 days, I have 7 nails picked up. So after a while, things just start developing. This complex here is much bigger than me, much bigger than me. I have to give credit to the Heavenly Father God Almighty because He gave me the sight. And when you're a person like I am, you walk by faith. And that's what I did.
Well, the many components, I mean, you kept adding on over this period of time.
Right. So when I got in here, I said, I'm going to do this here. This is going to be my gallery, and I'm going to have an event center there. And then I grew up. My mother was a hairstylist. So my anchor tenant here is the hairbender upstairs because I knew the kinds of clients she had and the money that could be made. So I put my anchor tenant, Miss Lena Austin, upstairs as a hairbender. She's been here like 15 years. Then I said, we need something in this space. So we had a flower shop there. Someone rented that space out and put a flower shop in there. And then we turned it into a bookstore. So certain parts were already taken. When I first came here, I lived on the 3rd floor. I created spaces in the basement for 2 apartments because I've always believed that you need help, cash flow. So that gave me the cash flow to keep working. I have bought things and had it for 10 years before I used it, as an example, because I know I was coming that way or going in that direction.
You had a dream.
Yes, absolutely.
You had a dream.
A man is not a man without a dream. You got to have a dream.
Nancy, how did you then get involved? You bought into the dream.
I did, and it's a pretty amazing place to be. One of the things that I appreciated growing up was my grandfather was a person that could work with his hands and fix things, and then my cousins, consequently, and watching Ed and his skills to help repair and improve and remodel and just beautify this place. He's really been blessed with the skill to do that. It would have cost probably a fortune if he didn't have that.
It cost a fortune anyway. and blame the skill part on my father.
Yeah.
I put my first hardwood floor in when I was 13 years old because my father was a property owner.
Right.
And what's been the impact on the community? I mean, who comes here and what do you find among those people who come here? And the age range, too. I'd like to know about that.
Over the years, all kind of people from every walk of life over the years, all kinds.
But are they mainly from East Cleveland?
All over, everywhere. East Cleveland, all over. We've what better experience is to wake up and have a Greyhound bus pull out there and let off 100 people? So we've had them all over. I would like to see more of East Cleveland. I would like to see more of my development, and that's starting to happen now with the schools. I had a tremendous idea. When I was a professor at community college, I I became an off-campus site for Tri-C. Everything they did for the other 3 campuses, they did for me. And because of the politics and stuff, it really didn't work because I had a dream of doing classes, what I normally refer to as in absentia. You know, I went to the schools and said, why don't you send your students here and get credit, and when they go to college, that credit would follow them. So that worked for a couple of years, and then through the politics, it was wiped away. But once you're an off-campus site, I assume that you're always an off-campus site, so we're going to be looking into that again.
As an educator, what do you think about that?
I think what's interesting in terms of the conversation that I'm hearing right now is the ways in which, you know, the skills, the building, the dream, the transformation really, I think, is a metaphor for our understanding the desire for transformation of East Cleveland itself. And in some ways, on this corner, from what I've learned from Ed Parker since meeting him, and from Nancy, who's given me some of the history, that this the businesses on this corner, the arts complex and the veterans home and the bed and breakfast, has been a way to both invest in community and also to hold down a corner and transform a piece of community and provide a space where people feel invited just to come in and browse and to think about art, to think about a safe space, to think about how spaces interact one with the other in community, but also a way to think about how we transform our lives. I think, you know, for me, that's what the cultural arts means. And I think if we think about this place here on this corner in East Cleveland, I didn't know about this place. I'm learning so much about East Cleveland now that Case Western Reserve University has established the Social Justice Alliance Institute, and working with the colleagues I'm now working with at Case Western Reserve University to really learn much more broadly about Cleveland, East Cleveland, the Northeast Ohio region. And, you know, the perception of East Cleveland is that, you know, it's a quote unquote no man's, no woman's land. And there are some complex realities there. There are social ills and social troubles and problems, but there are also opportunities and advantages in community, as in all communities. And I think this is one example of an invisible space that, at least invisible to some, space that really provides us with the vision of what transformed neighborhood could be. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's, you know, the history of the area, the revitalization, the ways in which we have developed this timely collaboration, the ways in which I hope we can expand and deepen cooperation between the Social Justice Alliance Institute and East Cleveland, between East Cleveland and Cleveland, between East Cleveland and Case Western Reserve and other constituents is really important. So, you know, I think, too, this is an example. I don't know, Ed and Nancy, and maybe this is something that you all might be better positioned to talk about. You know, the whole idea of thinking about community capacity and thinking about, again, those spaces, those ideas, those institutions that really help people survive and people thrive. And to the degree that we can bring greater attention to institutions that exist like this, as well as expand and inaugurate other types of institutions like that, then we're really getting into understanding questions of inequality and justice and transformation. At least that's how I'm imagining it. Mm-hmm. I'm in constant flux and dialogue, so I'm learning from you all and learning from all of those that I'm working with. But
let me add this: with the extension of the bed and breakfast, it has opened up a whole other kind of happening. From a businessman's point of view, I suffer because of the negativity of East Cleveland. So I took it upon myself to try to do something about that. When the new mayor came and with the bed and breakfast, I had people come here from all across the country. I had just had 2 young doctors doing research at Huron Hospital from Thailand. They stayed with me for 6 weeks. But the way that happened was when he called, he said, "How close are you to the hospital?" I said, 1.5 blocks. So he sent me his money in, and then I got this call back saying, "My senior says it's not a safe area. And my senior says that it's drug infested." So my comment to him was, drug infested. It's not like Thailand. That's where the drugs come from. So that hit a nerve, and he decided to come. And from that, I wrote a letter to the mayor and to Gus Caius, who is the developer or the president of Huron. And he said, well, what do you propose in this meeting with the mayor and him and myself? And I says, what about if I could bring 10 artists in here and we can paint positive images on all these buildings and make this a canvas, right? Make this area a canvas so people would come in and see these works. So, and I come to find out that street art, right? Yes. It was happening in other places, New York, Barcelona. I started doing research and getting books on street art. And it would be a tremendous idea to bring artists from across the country. Some would be paid, some would be volunteer. If you were an artist, wouldn't you just love to paint a street, to have that on your resume?
Yes, I would.
Art for social development.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what I think. From my standpoint, that's what the Social Justice Alliance Institute is all about. Rhonda?
Yes, indeed.
Indeed.
I'm still listening to Ed. I mean, I know he stopped chatting, but I'm waiting for more from Ed. Well, and Nancy, I mean, I think, the Time Capsule Project is a part of that cultural, artistic development. One is visual, one is oral. Yeah. Both tell us stories, about past, present, and future.
Right. And to add on that, we're doing work. I'll have, 6 students coming from Case Western to do the beginning of this. Even if that proposal doesn't go through, I have 6, 7 garages around here that we're going to paint murals on to show people what it could be.
When I came on board in my other life, I had developed really wonderful relationships with a lot of people in the University Circle and Rhonda at Case Western Reserve. So to come and help with the Time Capsule Project, I engaged friends at University Circle Incorporated, and they came and they saw, and they really liked what they saw. They trusted me, and I really appreciate that. And when they came, they really appreciated what they found. And so University Circle has embraced this facility in a huge way, and we're now going to be part of Parade the Circle. And the students that Ed talks about are from the University Circle's Future Connection program. And so we'll take 6 of them for 4 weeks this summer to work with him, learn the field of art. We're working with Huron Hospital on the Time Capsule, and Western Reserve Historical Society and Key Bank. So we have started to build some wonderful collaborations.
She mentioned the Parade in the Circle, which brings about 75,000 people. I'm fortunate enough to house the Africans who will be doing the designs in the complexes around here, and also they will be having the party in the event center at the close of the Parade in the Circle.
I wanted to just jump back in and mention the other partners that are working with us on the Community Time Capsule. Yes. I would be remiss not to say that the City of East Cleveland is helping us considerably. We're working with the East Cleveland School District, and Case Western Reserve, we're working with several departments at Case Western Reserve. So in addition to Huron Hospital, Western Reserve Historical Society, and University Circle, we have a wonderful team of people that are assisting that time capsule.
Yeah, at Case Western, in fact, the Center for Community Partnerships is working with us. The Calvin Smith Library, Center for Civic Engagement and Learning are all around the table. Nancy invited them all around the table, and it just so happens that at least the Center for Community Partnerships and the Center for Civic Engagement and Learning are also on the leadership team for the Social Justice Alliance and Institute. So you can already see the ways in which kind of the collaborations are enriched and expanding out. And so we're really excited to work with Nancy and Ed on this project. And I think it's going to be really exciting too, because, if you have all these people people around the table really thinking about the stories and unfolding the stories, finding the stories. And then you bring people to the table to help design and sponsor critical dialogues around the stories, which is one of the key things that we want to do with the debut collaborative research project with the Social Justice Alliance and Institute. So have students at the table from the East Cleveland schools, to have, Huron Hospital, have University Circle, everybody coming together with their kind of own perspectives, their own histories, their own ideas and experiences about the community. It'll be really engaging and exciting, I think. Not only what we put in the time capsule, I say we, I'm looking at Nancy and Ed, I'm saying we because I feel such a part of this. They made me feel such a part of this. Not only what we put in the time capsule, but also how we interpret what's been put in the time capsule and how we understand those transformations over time that really get us to grapple with issues of justice and inequality. I think is going to be really important. To do that is necessary if we're going to think about social transformation and social change, if we're going to think about reciprocal benefit to those who are engaged in the process. And I think we always have to keep those things on the front burner: reciprocity and transformation and social change.
Thank you. Thank you all three, Ed Parker, Nancy Nolan-Jones, Rhonda Williams. This has been a wonderfully warm invitation that we've accepted and brought great pleasure to us all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Regionally Speaking, a forum that explores the distinctive aspects of Northeast Ohio. Today's program is made possible through the generous support of the Social Justice Alliance Institute, the Case Western Reserve University Advanced Opportunity Grants, and the Case Western Reserve University Center for Community Partnerships. To learn more about the issues facing our region, visit our website at blog.case.edu/WRRS. You can also email your comments, questions, and suggestions to regionallyspeaking@case.edu.
Thanks for listening, and be sure to join us next time for Regionally Speaking.